Dun, 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 dun. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about how to make your own semi-transparent or glow-in-the-dark Victorinox scale for 91mm Swiss Army knife. First, a quick disclaimer, this is not a paid advertisement and I pay for everything I use for this mod. So everything you hear will be my own personal unbiased experience. To make the semi-transparent scales are easy, basically it's just a waiting game. Submerge a pair of 91mm Silvertex scales in 5% acidity white vinegar and just start waiting. Every few days I would open the lid and trying to use the Q-tip to rub the paint off. By the end of the first month, most majority of the silver paint would have been stripped off. I remember changing the vinegar after the first month, but it didn't seem to help with the process. And by month and a half, the scales basically turned semi-transparent. I usually will wait 2 full months just to be sure the process is finished. Next, we rinse the scales with cold water and dry thoroughly. I use the acrylic repair solution or paste to try to increase the transparency. In US, you can find such repair solutions in the container store. Here's the semi-transparent scale we get after 2 months of vinegar stripping, scrubbing, and acrylic repair. For effect, I overlay the scales onto a naked Swiss Army knife next to an original Silvertex scale. I think these semi-transparent scales are interesting in its own right, but the difference may not be that significant when compared to the original Silvertex. Now moving onwards to our glow-in-the-dark scales, I got my glow powder from Glow Ink and the epoxy from Art & Glow. The last time I used glow-in-the-dark powder was like 10-15 years ago, but as an ex-flashaholic, I can still tell this powder is of decent quality. For the epoxy, you can use anything you want, just so as long the cure time is no less than 1 hour, and it is totally transparent after being cured. Here I'm using a scale to make sure all the proportions are 100% accurate. This is exceptionally important, especially when you're mixing only a small portion of a 2-part epoxy together. Wrong proportion will just affect the curing. If you're using this epoxy for the first time, I would recommend mixing a small amount for a dry run, just to see how fast it cures before the actual application. For the mix ratio, I suggest a 1:1 mix ratio for the glow-in-the-dark powder and the mixed epoxy, but definitely no more than 6:4. In my experience, 2 grams of total mixed epoxy and 2 grams of glow-in-the-dark powder is enough to fill in 1 pair of Victorinox 91mm semi-transparent scale. You do want to make sure the mixture is fluid enough to fill up all the tiny gaps while having a maximum amount of powder for the glow. You may need to use a toothpick to drip in the mixture drop by drop and Q-tips to wipe off the excess. Don't try to fill up the mixture all the way up to the ridges of the scale, but slightly below it. Once you're done, use lighter to quickly flash flame the epoxy to burst all the surface bubbles. Now once those scales are done, we put it in a dust-free box and wait for it to cure. For the Art & Glow epoxy, it's recommended to wait a full 12 hours for it to fully cure. And once it's done, I use the Dremel to make 2 small divots for holding the backside 2-pin rivets. Remember to wear a mask when you're doing this. I'm not 100% sure the glow-in-the-dark epoxy is safe to breathe in. Due to all the partitions are now filled with the epoxy, there will be less flex in the scale, so it'll be a lot more difficult to snap on the scales just with your fingers. Definitely use a vise with wet leather wrapped around the sock to prevent scratching it when you're snapping them on. Before we wrap things up, just want to give a real quick shout out and credits to my fellow MTO members whom have tried to make the transparent scale in the past on the forum. Without them, this will not be possible. And if you want to have more information, please do feel free to visit the MTO forum, which I'll give the link in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.